creativity isn't something that you just foster overnight, but it is something that you can foster over the course of time. So stay persistent, keep experimenting, keep experiencing new things, and don't give up on your creative journey. Welcome back to The Creative Code, where we talk about creativity, how to explore yours, and how to share it with the world. I am your host, Dylan Bennett, and on today's episode, we are touching on a question that everybody asks and has been asking since the dawn of time. Okay, maybe not that long. Is creativity only for those who are born with it, or can you cultivate it? Now, when we think of creativity, there are obviously certain names that come to mind. People like Bob Dylan, Pharrell Williams, Walt Disney, Albert Einstein. Those are incredibly creative people. And they seem to embody the word creativity in its purest form. But were they born this way, or was it something that they worked on over the course of their life to get to the point that we know them as creative people? Let's take a little bit of a closer look at these iconic figures. Now, in the last episode, I did touch on a couple of these folks, so I'm not going to go too deep into that. If you want to go a little bit deeper into each of these people, you can check out the last episode titled Multiple Creative Outputs, where I talked about how each one of these incredible creators dabbled in different styles of creation. But first off, let's look at Walt Disney. He is known as creating the magical universe we know as Disney. But for Disney, it wasn't always just fairy tales and making up incredibly loving characters like Mickey Mouse, Goofy, Donald, all the folks that we know, right? He had a lot of setbacks. He even got fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination. How incredible is that? One of the most imaginative, creative people that we know in human history got fired for not having an imagination. Now, obviously, if that is the case, we can argue that maybe he wasn't born with it, right? That he cultivated it, that he grew it over the course of his life. I think Walt Disney is a prime example that it's not born, it's created. And it takes some perseverance, some skill building, and the ability to innovate and pivot, especially in the face of failure, like getting fired from your newspaper job for lacking imagination. Next up is Pharrell Williams, or as how many of us know him, is simply Pharrell. Pharrell is obviously a multi-talented artist. He's a singer, songwriter, producer, and actually he's a designer too, which is interesting enough. Again, I talked about it in the last episode, so if you want to learn a little bit more about his design career, you can. But what sets Pharrell apart is actually his ability to cross boundaries, his ability to really mix up genres, both in the fashion sense and in the music sense. He's had a part in either creating or being a part of songs in genres like rock, hip-hop, R&B, soul. I mean, he's got songs across the spectrum. And his ability to find creativity in each of those styles and then to translate it in things like design, that is really where creativity and innovation have to come in and play a very big part. Because how we understand a lot of those things, it's very carbon copy. How normal people tend to process those things are very carbon copy. Like, this is rock, this is R&B, this is hip hop, right? He's actually able to blend a lot of those things. And that comes from a career of fostering innovation, from fostering his own creative style to be able to connect with a lot of those things. And that takes time. That takes years of experience and pushing those limits. And Pharrell has obviously been able to do that with his eclectic musical and fashion career. And finally, one that I didn't actually mention in the last episode is Albert Einstein. Now, many of us know him as a scientific genius, right? He came up with the theory of relativity. His understanding of the sciences and math, he actually credits that to his creativity more than his knowledge base. He actually famously said, imagination is more important than knowledge. And his creativity was actually fueled by his curiosity, which is something that we can embody very easily. It's simply asking questions. It's being curious about how something works and wanting to understand why it works that way and how it works that way. And that can help us refine a lot of systems and find new creativity and be more innovative. It's a willingness to see the world a little differently, right? Not everything is black and white. There's a lot of gray area there. But it's a gray area that we can find a lot of very beautiful color in, as long as we open our eyes and decide to see it that way. So what do all these stories tell us, right? What do the stories of these incredible creators tell us? They show us that creativity isn't something that you're born with. It's something that can be developed, that can be fostered, that can be fed into. And whether you're a scientist or an artist or a musician or anything in between, creativity is a skill that you can build, that you can cultivate over the course of your life. The idea that creativity is reserved for a select few, or a certain few who are born with that extra bone in their body, right? It's simply a myth. It's just a myth. It's something that creative and selfish people will tell people who don't feel like they're creative to limit them, to hold them back. Or it's something that people who may not have as much creativity now will tell themselves, like, oh, I wasn't born with it. Maybe you weren't. I don't think any of us were. Maybe you're more apt to be a little bit more creative, or maybe you're more apt to be a great basketball player or a great piano player, but you don't know unless you try. You don't know unless you try and cultivate it. Like if you really wanted to learn how to be one of the best piano players in the world, you would put in the time and the effort to do it, even if you weren't naturally talented, right? It's just about putting in the reps. It's about trying to find the space to find that creativity, to find that innovation. So it's not about being born with that special talent or that extra bone in your body, like I said. It's about having that mindset to explore, to experiment, to embrace the unknown. So let's dive into something actionable. How can you cultivate your own creativity? If you don't feel like you are creative now, or if you do feel like you are and you want to branch into some new areas, how can you cultivate that? So here are 10 tips that I've found that can help you cultivate your own creativity. Many of these I actually do myself as a graphic designer, as a marketer, as a business person, to cultivate my own creativity. Number one, as we mentioned with the story of Einstein, is embracing curiosity. Now, you're going to find a lot of new things just by simply asking questions. Simply start by asking why more often. Why does it work like that? Why are we doing it this way? Why does it come out that way when I do this? Having that understanding or having that curiosity leads to more exploration. It leans into fueling your creativity through experience, through exploring different and that's probably the easiest thing that you can do today is just start asking more questions. The answers that you get from those questions can lean into maybe some creative idea for something completely different or something down the road that maybe you don't think of today. Number two is to practice mindfulness. Now, that can sound all wooey and spiritual and all that. What I mean by practicing mindfulness is find a way to clear your head. We all have busy lives, whether we have kids or not. We have their sports, school, work, our passions, our families and friends, and doing all this thing. Maybe sports are a big part of your life. Whatever it is, we all have a busy life. To us, we all have very large lives, and that can take up a lot of our headspace. When I recommend practicing mindfulness, that means just finding time to clear your head, whether that's jotting down ideas to try and clear them out of your head rather than holding them in. It could be organizing your calendar to try and clear all the things from your head. It could be having a specific to-do list, or maybe a might-do list or a project list for things around the house to help you stay organized. Those types of organizations clear up our brain a little bit. Our brains are not designed to keep everything in them. So by clearing some of that clutter, by having systems and organizational tactics to clear our mind, we can create more space for creative ideas. Number three is to break routines. Routines can be anything from how you get out of bed in the morning to how you go to bed at night. It could be how you drive to work. It could be how you prep your lunch. Any one of those routines, while productive, can be detrimental to your creativity. Now, I'm not telling you to throw all your routines out the door. I am huge on routines. I'm huge on efficiency and finding the best way to do things. However, there are times that I'll maybe throw a wrench in that a little bit. I'll take a different route to work, right? I'll do something a little differently when I drop my son off for school. I'll find a time maybe once a week where I'll just randomly go on a walk. No phone, maybe just take my little notepad with my ideas and just take a walk, just explore. Whether that's at work, outside, down the block, whatever it may be. Just having something a little bit different in your routine can help break up the thought process a little bit, get you out of maybe a rut, and help foster some new experiences that can lean into your creativity and innovation. Number four is something for some reason that we forget to do when we get older, or we just abandon altogether, and that's embracing styles of play. That could be anything from fantasy football to sports to playing with Legos. Any style of play is going to lean into this because it leans into a creative outlet for us. It doesn't have to be something you spend a bunch of money on. Believe me, I know that Legos are expensive. I love Legos just as much as you do. And if I could, I would have a full collection that is absolutely ridiculous. But not everybody can afford that, and that's totally understandable. Finding ways that you can just simply play. If you do have kids, play on the floor with them with their toys. Build blocks. Go outside and play in the sandbox. Engage your imagination in ways that maybe you haven't in 10 or 15 years. Go to the playground and play a game that you've never even thought of before. Finding ways to engage in play can give you different ideas and put you in a new creative space when you go back to work on Monday. Number 5 is to collaborate with other people. There are plenty of creators who do great things on their own. Now, I'm not saying that you have to do everything with everybody else. If your creativity is something that flourishes already and you're coming up with great ideas, I think that can just be expedited or expanded when you work with somebody else. Try throwing those ideas that you have off of somebody else and see if they can give you some feedback that maybe leans into a new idea. That could be a business partner, a family member, or just a trusted friend. Having somebody else that you can bounce those ideas off of just gives you an extra perspective. The more people you connect with, the better that idea may become. Businesses use this all the time. Businesses will maybe test a product or a service and then get feedback from their clientele, from their customers, and take that feedback and make their product or their service even better. We can do the same things as humans too. We can get feedback on maybe how we're doing something or how we act or maybe something that we do at work. Those can give us more creative ideas to where we can start to implement new things in our lives, in our businesses, in our art, and obviously in our creativity. Number 6 is to learn from our failures and the failures of others. Failure is something that not a lot of people have a great relationship with. And that comes from how we understand it growing up, whether we experienced it a lot or not. If we don't experience it a lot growing up, I'm a firm believer that we have a harder time dealing with it as we grow older. It's not something to be afraid of. Yes, there are large failures that suck, that are awful. But at the same time, at the end of the day, none of it matters. Nobody remembers how many shots Michael Jordan missed. Nobody remembers the putts that Tiger Woods didn't make. Those failures led into a better performer, into a better athlete, into a better artist, into a better business person. Every failure that you've had led you to where you are now. And each misstep is what I like to call them. Not a failure. It's just a misstep. It's a learning opportunity. And that's exactly what it is an opportunity and a stepping stone to finding more creative ideas, to growth, to improvement, and to becoming a better version of you at whatever it is that you do. Number 7 is to keep a creativity journal. This is something I just started doing again. I've had some different processes over the years of trying to do it digitally, trying to do it in a journal. I just went back to a regular journal, and I actually really like it, partially because I'm creating the time for it. Now, what I mean by a creative journal is literally it could just be a notepad. It doesn't have to be a specific journal or size. Take it for what it is and find something that works for you. For me, it's a small notebook that I can easily carry around with a pen when I have a great idea or even just a idea. It doesn't have to be, this is going to be the next great business idea. It's going to be the next Amazon. It doesn't have to be that. Just any idea about anything that relates to you. Write it down. Take 10 minutes in the morning, take 10 minutes at night, and let your mind wander. Sit perfectly still in your office chair, in your bed, on the couch, and let your mind wander. Turn the TV off, turn the music off in the background, make sure the kids are asleep. Let your mind wander with some creative ideas and just write them all down. It could be something completely weird. I said in a previous podcast that a lot of people like, and my wife actually makes fun of me for, is pickle-flavored ice cream. Don't know why that came to mind that day, but it could be something as weird as that. Jot it down. Even if it's something that has no relation to you, that could lean into something that does relate to you. That could foster some sort of idea down the road that you have no idea even exists right now. Not only is it a great idea to keep track of your stuff, but it's a great thing to reflect on as well. That's why I like journaling so much, and why I have this creative journal now, is that I can reflect on those things. Because again, your mind is not built to remember every single thing. So by writing them down, you can go back and review them later. And then maybe your memory gets jogged to where, oh yeah, that is kind of a good idea. Or I wonder how I can apply this to X, Y, or Z. So that creative style can help you reflect. It can help you engage, and it can actually help you track your creative evolution. So if you're somebody who maybe doesn't feel as creative now, you can watch your creativity flourish over the course of your life with these creative journals. Number 8 is something that I've mentioned before on this podcast, and that's expose yourself to new experiences. That could be anything from traveling to a new place. That could be trying a new restaurant. That could be reading new books, attending different cultural events, going to meetings that maybe you wouldn't attend before. It could be networking, meeting new people. New experiences will give you fresh perspectives. New experiences can give you new people to collaborate with. It can expose you to new things, to new ideas, layouts, systems, processes, anything. That exposure to new things can help bolster what you're currently doing, because you don't know what you don't know. And by experiencing more things, you can know a lot more and help bolster what you're currently doing. Number 9 is to set time away for creative work. Now, this differs a little bit from what I mentioned earlier, taking 10 minutes at the beginning of the day or the end of the day for creative ideas. I've actually started to do both of those things, but this is completely different. This is related more to taking time in your day for creativity, to do things creatively, whether that's art, creative work in your business. I take a specific amount of time every single day to do something creative that can move the needle forward. Now, for me right now, I'm very heavy in creating digital products, both for my webpage and for my Etsy shop. I've spent a ton of time recently creating new products for that, and make sure that I take time to do those things creatively. I'm also very active in Canva. Obviously, I teach that to students, and I spend time probably once a week, at least every other week, just exploring new things in there, trying new apps, trying new styles, exploring new updates. It just leans into the ability to A, use the platform, and B, find ways to do things creatively, or finding new ways to do things. Give yourself the time to do things creatively. Don't simply fill your schedule with a bunch of stuff that you think you need to do. Find time to be creative. If that's something that you want to foster, that's obviously the case if you're listening to this podcast, is that you want to grow your creative style. You want to expand your creativity. And setting time to do creative things is how you're going to do that. Number 10, and this is something that is even more paramount based on some of the stories that I gave you earlier and in the last episode, that is to stay persistent. Creativity isn't always easy. Like I said before, you're going to try something new and you're probably going to be terrible at it. I've tried a lot of new things in my life, and there's been a lot of things that I've been just terrible at. It's not going to be easy. Creativity isn't something that you just foster overnight, but it is something that you can foster over the course of time. So stay persistent, keep experimenting, keep experiencing new things, and don't give up on your creative journey. So to wrap things up, is creativity really only for the born creative? No, it's not. It's something that you can cultivate, that you can grow. As we've seen through the stories of people like Walt Disney, Pharrell, Shakespeare, and Einstein, creativity is something that can be nurtured, that can be cultivated and developed. It's about having the right mindset. It's about thinking that you can grow your creativity, that you can be more creative, that you can experience new things, and that you're okay with failing. Creativity isn't a destination. It's a continuous journey. It's something that we continually improve on. I think of it more of a mountain that just never ends, right? There's a lot of climbing. There's a lot of growth. But you don't have to reach the tip of Mount Everest, because you can learn a lot along the way. So whether you're starting from scratch or simply looking to expand your creative abilities, there is always room to grow. Thanks for tuning into The Creative Code. If you enjoyed this episode and want to learn more, you can obviously subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can also see the video version of this show on YouTube, or you can connect with me on social media channels like Instagram, LinkedIn, and Threads. Each one of those, you'll find new tips, tricks, tutorials, ways that you can expand your creativity on the daily basis. So until next time, keep creating, keep experimenting, keep trying new things, and remember that there's creativity in all of us.